Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with Rocks and Stocks News. We have another of our interviews with CEOs of mining companies that have outstanding futures. I-80 Gold is a sponsor of the website. I'm certainly glad that they are because they keep hitting a lot of high grade with more than one project. I think they got two world-class projects on their hands at Granite Creek and also at Ruby Hills. And today's news, or yesterday's news that we're going to talk about with you and Downey relates to their Ruby Hills project. You and I looked at the map before the plan view before I came in, or we started, and I was looking at the distribution of the gold, where it is and how far away it is and the continuity. Quite exceptional stuff, my friend.
Yeah, it's a pretty exciting project. It's quickly becoming our flagship asset within our company.
Well, these results you talked about included the 426 zone, which is related to a fault. You also had some step outs on the Ruby Deeps. It looks like this is all connected.
Yeah, the deposit, or the 426 zone, is associated with what's interpreted to be more or less a vertical fault. It's dipping to the northwest, but the mineralization is more vertical. So to drill it, we have to drill down dip, so to speak. Whereas the Ruby Deeps deposit is flat lying. But there is a gap between where we drilled 426 and where Ruby Deeps is. However, if you look at the last press release where we did the step out hole, I believe that was 2206 of this year, that hit nearly 20 grams over 33 meters in Ruby Deeps. We also hit above the sill, we hit mineralization of plus 8 grams over more than 20 meters. And those upper intercepts could be, we're going to have to do some more drilling in there, but could be more or less associated where the 426 fault is coming down into Ruby Deep. So there's considerable expansion potential of these high grade zones. And, almost every intercept we've drilled, or every intercept we've drilled so far in the program at Ruby Hill, has intersected grades well in excess of the resource grade that was completed by Waterton. So we think that their resource estimate was very conservative, especially in terms of grade.
Now, when I was looking at that plan view and the cross section, I noticed that in addition to these 426 zone that you drilled off of one setup, there was also hole 3 that veered off the target. But then there's hole 5 that hit 9.10 grams of 9.8 meters. So, and that's sort of in the middle of the 426 and the Ruby Deeps. Did I see that correctly?
Yeah, hole 3 sort of dipped. So as it went down, instead of flattening, it actually dipped. So we didn't hit the target where we had hoped to. We didn't bother wedging out of it. We got enough information from the other holes, but yeah, the deposit, I'd say there's limited potential going out to the northeast, but it's definitely open to the south towards the Holly Fault, and it's open at depth. And we are permitting for the decline to access this 426 zone, and I would expect around mid-year next year, if all goes well, we will be actually developing in this 426 zone. So we are looking to fast track it to our the next development project in our portfolio after Granite Creek.
Okay, so before we talk about that, this hole 5 is quite interesting to me. 7.1 grams over 78 meters, and that hole was almost the mineralized zone of that was almost continuous for 5 grams and above.
Yeah, that hole was drilled in the Ruby Deeps deposit, the 78 meter intercept. So it's the main deposit that we are drilling right now at Ruby Hill. 426 is the secondary zone.
Well, that's a hell of a secondary zone because you've got easy access to that from the former pit.
Yeah, and we're actually seeing a fair amount of oxide mineralization in the upper parts of 426. I
Wow.
would say more than we expected. And as you may recall, we have a CIL plant, an idle CIL plant sitting at Ruby Hill. So we're actively working towards. Um, we're going to commission a study to look at what would be the cost to restart that facility. It's been just sitting there for over a decade, but it was only used for a couple of months, so it could be retrofitted fairly quickly to process oxide ore if we're successful in delineating sufficient oxide mineralization that justifies that startup. So it could add another angle to our story that I don't think any of the analysts are currently carrying in their work on our company.
So are you talking about that 04 and 01 area where you hit like 4.6 grams over 13 meters and 4.2 over 12 meters? Is that oxide material?
No, all of these holes have oxide. So even the 10 plus gram material, some of that is oxide. So we're going to be definitely, as we get our assays, we're doing cyanide solubility. We're also looking at the historic drilling that Barrick did here, looking at their cyanide solubility. So when we build our new resource model, we differentiate between the sulfides and the oxide so that in our mine planning, we can then separate it and then ultimately likely process the oxide material at hopefully right on site. And then lower grade oxide that we develop, because we do expect to develop in a lot of 1 to 2 gram material. We've got the heap leach pad there, so we'll be throwing that on the heap leach pad. So Ruby Hill is going to be a big part of our future, and the drill bit is sure showing a lot of very exciting results.
Geez, when you're talking about low grade being 1 to 2 grams in a world where half a gram oxides is being mined these days, that's pretty exceptional stuff. But then you get that juicier stuff and you can make a lot of money off of that.
Yeah, definitely something that we need to keep track of in a lot of detail as we move towards our mine planning here.
So is that sort of the idea, is to go deeper into that pit and then come into it from that direction, Ewan? Is that what you're envisioning?
Yeah, in the north face of the pit, we've already designated the spot where we're expect to put in the decline. It'll be essentially an identical decline as what we're doing at Cove right now. So it's pretty much just duplicating what we're already doing. But here, the mineralization is only a couple of 100 meters into the decline, and we'll be into the 426 mineralization. So I would expect next year that we'll be drilling off the 426 from underground.
And we've talked about it before, you and the ability you guys have to close that Lassonde curve from the discovery peak to the mining peak. Usually that's 7 to 10 years in the development discount window. You guys can narrow that down to, and not just here, but in other deposits, down to a year, 2 years or less.
Yeah, well, Granite Creek will be ramping up mostly in the fourth quarter of this year is when we expect to start really having enough development in that we're actually doing more mining than development. And so that project will be advancing after we complete the current bulk sample and deliver that to Nevada Gold Mines. And it'll be continue to ramp up in 23, but in 23 we'll have good access to this 426 zone. And if the mill, the mill's in great shape, it's almost brand new. It's just been sitting. So we probably have to change bearings, maybe do some replacement or some upgrading of a couple of the crushers. And I would expect we could start it up. So conceivably by the end of 23, we could be using the Ruby Hill site as a processing site.
And that's it's incredible to find the grades that you're finding at both Granite Creek and at Ruby Hills, 426, Ruby Deeps. But you know, a lot of times to get to that high grade in a discovery takes a long time. You guys are in sort of a remarkable position that you can narrow that development discount window in the Lassonde curve down to next to nothing.
Yeah, it's a pretty unique opportunity I think we have with I-80, and I still think we're being overlooked. I was talking to one of our shareholders who was on a fishing trip with a CEO of one of the other producers, and he hadn't even heard of us. So I think it's still getting the word out who I-80 is still something that we're actively pursuing, and doing your show regularly helps out. And we're going to attend the Silver Summit in Spokane, because we're not just a gold company. We have over 180 million ounces of silver resources in our company, and we think that there's great potential to grow that. And longer term, we expect that we may be one of the largest silver resource holders in the United States, in addition to gold.
Another effort that you're doing to get the word out is you have a conference that I suggest people go to your website and sign up for, because I'm very bullish on this Eureka part of the Battle Mountain Eureka trend. We've got a few companies that I'm following very closely there, and you're doing an interview with one of my other sponsors, and you're going to be talking about that Eureka part where Ruby Deeps is located.
Yeah, it's a great district. It's a district that really hasn't received a ton of attention for the last while, other than Barrick and Homestake being there to develop the Archimedes pit. But it's good to see Timberline down to the south. They're doing some good work, and we wish them a lot of success. And then there's Golden Lake just to the north of them, and they've been having some success, and I believe they're drilling. And then there's Paycore to the north of them, joining us, and they're having some pretty substantial success. So it's pretty exciting to see multiple companies working in the area, and I'd like to think that there's going to be more companies coming and trying to find what kind of ground is around Eureka.
Well, keep your ears open for me, because let me know, because I love that area. I think you guys have a world-class discovery on your hands, and I'm liking what Timberline's doing. Very interested in Golden Lake. They've got a lot of historical mining. It's always a good place to look for a new mine. And the stuff that Paycore has. You know, you guys have a hell of a good part of the Eureka trend there, looking really good.
Yeah, and it's not just gold, as I said. There's a significant opportunity for silver in this district. Historically, it had huge silver production and had a lot of base metal production. And we plan to, when we drive the decline down into 426 and Ruby Deeps, we also plan on doing a spur off decline over to what we call the Blackjack deposit on our property. Blackjack is a polymetallic, or a lead, zinc, silver, gold discovery immediately underneath the pit that we haven't done any drilling in yet. We are doing some drilling in additional polymetallic targets on the property, and we'll be hopefully talking about those on the show here pretty soon. And then obviously Paycore immediately south of us, maybe along that same structural corridor, has the FAD deposit that they're drilling. So the base metal opportunity here could be massive, and I think it's really being overlooked historically, because Barrick didn't care about base metals on the property, and we do. So we will be really looking at the base metal opportunity, and we expect by in the second half of the 2020s that we will produce both gold and base metals from the Ruby Hill site.
And no, you're talking about some serious size to those base metal, like Arizona Mining there got taken over for something like what you're looking at for target.
Yeah, they did. That was a pretty large takeover by South 32, except I'm gonna stick my neck out a bit here, but the grades are quite a bit better where we are than at Arizona Mining. So I'd like to think that if we make it big enough, there's going to be base metal companies saying, hey, look at what those I-80 gold guys are doing.
Well, I look at everything you have, Ewan, and Ruby Deeps, McCoy Cove, Granite Creek, the greater Ruby Hills target area. I've said before that I think that you guys have the growth profile of a young Barrick. Whether or not you get all the way there, who knows? But you don't need to see a huge performance for the shareholders of I-80.
Yeah, I look at this as I've been involved obviously in a couple of companies before I-80. I-80 is really a spin out of those two companies. And both of those companies previously were taken over. Premier Royalties that we formed was taken over. And so I believe we assembled good projects in all three companies, which resulted in the takeovers. But what we're building here in I-80, I think, is a once in a lifetime chance for me as an explorationist and now developer. So it's pretty unique to be able to assemble this type of portfolio and have the infrastructure to process it. So we're
in Nevada.
Yeah, it's a great place to work. They very pro mining, and a lot in the areas like Battle Mountain and Eureka, Carlin, Elko. Almost everybody there is there because of mining. So it's an area that that people want to see you succeed and build your projects. And in a lot of places in North America, that's pretty unique.
Well, I think that's a heck of a good place to end it on. Once in a lifetime coming from you. You've spent your career in this business. We've been talking since your first takeover, Wolfden, that then you spun out Premier. Made my mom really happy when that got taken over because she was a shareholder. And I'm trying to convince her to buy some I-80 to make the trifecta.
Sounds good.
Awesome, Ewan. Let me close it off, and I can't wait for our next sets of interviews because I think you guys have a hell of a growth profile.
Thanks again for having me on the show, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
Okay, Ewan, I'm going to close it off. So there you go, folks. I'm banging the drum hard on I-80 Gold because the only time I've ever in my career of reporting on companies have said, this company looks to me like a young Barrick. And I've never said that before for a reason. The portfolio of assets, not just at Ruby Hills, Granite Creek, McCoy Cove, and the processing facility that they have, which opens the door because there's only a few companies that have these kind of facilities to process that kind of material. It opens three in the United States, as Ewan just pointed out. It opens the potential for future acquisitions. So, I-80 has a very modest valuation relative to the quality of their assets. And they're not just finding high-grade gold. They can put that into production quickly. I follow a lot of explorers that make discoveries, but they got a long window before they can see the rewards of mining that. These guys don't have that problem. And I think they have, I think this is a multi-billion-dollar company in the making, currently with about a $500 million valuation. So do your homework, speak with your financial advisors, check out their website, check out this summit that they're doing, the Silver Summit, and also this Eureka Gold Trend story tomorrow. Go to their website, sign up for it. I'll be on it. Maybe I'll even ask a question or two. On that note, everybody have a great day, and we will talk to you soon.